and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morna Balagubo. As always, we've got a great show for you today. Today happens to be the night of the U.S. elections. Of course, that started yesterday. But let's give you a rundown of some of the things we'll be talking about. We'll be looking at the presidential race, X-raying how Trump won poll, and a look at the Senate race. Republicans beat Democrats, and the fate of U.S.-Africa relations. Of course, we are in Nigeria. How does that translate into our nation and also other African countries? Well, our guest, Arome Agenyi, will be joining us. He's a political analyst, a researcher, and a development expert. Also, today we'll be looking at the arraignment of minors over #bad governance protest. Here is a rundown of our talking points. Mercy over judgment. President Tinubu's intervention. Too late, some say too late, and some said he shouldn't have gotten that far. But we'll also talk about the calls for welfare after the release of minors, and X-raying right to protest versus committing a treasonable offense. We'll take a quick breather. We'll break it down when we come back shortly. And now to the United States election. Former President Donald Trump has been declared as the winner of the election after winning a couple of swing states. Of course, they're still announcing results, but of course, it's obvious that there is nothing that Kamala Harris can do to take back the win from President Trump. Quite the victory, despite the media trolling that. I mean, it was, a clearly divided election in terms of how close it was. Well, Trump wins the popular vote. That is quite surprising from what you can see there on the screen. Of course, President Trump, polled over, as at the time he was declared winner, polled over 70 million plus votes. And then Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for the U.S. election, not nominee now, candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris scored over 65 million plus votes as at the time Trump was declared to win. So that state, Wisconsin, was what did it for Trump. 274 electoral votes, and Kamala Harris at 224 votes. Let's look at the electoral map to see the geography of how the voters voted. So you can see red standing for Republicans and then blue for Democratic states, and you can just see red all across the map right there. So that's the pattern of votes. So how did Trump win this election? I mean, quite surprising for a lot of people. Even watching U.S. media, especially the liberal media, the likes of CNN, MSNBC, and more. I mean, the shocking and the shaky voice. They did not see it coming that Trump will be declared the winner of the election. But Trump actually declared himself winner even before it was being called by the U.S. media. So let's have a listen to what he said earlier.
I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate, and I'm asking every citizen all across our land to join me in this noble and righteous endeavor. That's what it is. It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite And we're going to try, we have to try, and it's going to happen. Success will bring us together. I've seen that. We are going to start by all putting America first. We have to put our country first for at least a period of time. We have to fix it.
Now, on the other hand, Kamala Harris is yet to, of course, concede to defeat, but hopefully she will do that shortly. And, of course, her campaign co-chair addressed her rally at Howard University, saying that there are still voters to be counted, yes, and states left to be called, yes, and Harris will address the nation on Wednesday, USA time. Well, let's have a listen to what Cedric Richmond, Harris' campaign co-chair, said earlier.
Good evening, Howard. Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
So let's get straight to the conversation. Arame again joins us right now. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. So what are your immediate thoughts on Trump's win?
My quick and immediate thought is that this is a victory for democracy. It's a sign that democracy is advancing, and a sign that people are in tune with. People actually know what they want, and the U.S. citizens in the United States of America know what they want. They know the kind of leader that they want. And the citizens have spoken. They have voted who they want to govern them in the next 4 years. And for me, I think people's opinion has won. So this is democracy, and we should be able to live up to this. Enough of the whole conversations around the whole gender rhetorics, around sexism and all of these whole conversations. You could literally see that the campaign was anchored from the poll. You could literally see that what the Americans were actually looking out for is not a leader that will advance conversations about freedom over your body. They are looking at who can revamp the economy, who can turn the economy around, so that the average American can have food on his or her table. And this, for me, I think, is one of the core responsibility, one of the core function of governance. People being able to meet their basic need, and not just about how do we talk about rights when you don't even have a food in your stomach, when you don't even have security. So these are things that we should be looking at for. And I think that people had voted what they actually wanted. And I think democracy had succeeded in this regard.
Talking about democracy, the Democrats felt that Trump was a disaster for democracy, given the fact that he was said to have invaded the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, and all the conversation that, he's going to be dangerous. He's a fascist. He's this. He's sexist. He's a racist. All of that. What's your thoughts?
Well, Democrats could think Trump is a disaster. Any other person could think Trump is a disaster. But what's the fulcrum of democracy is the people. And if we go by how simply it was defined, we said it is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, if democracy is truly about the people, are we going by what some key leaders in Democrat have said about Trump, or do we want to go by what the popular opinion? Let me also remind you that, draw your attention to this fact that Trump did not just win by the electoral college vote. He also won by a popular vote. That is to tell us that a large percentage of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, actually voted him in. Now, there were polls that was conducted before now about the state of democracy in America. There were all issues about the declining nature of democracy. And the declining nature of democracy is not just in America. It's something that cut across the entire world. So, saying Trump is a disaster, for me, I think it's part of the game of politics, pushing their narrative, pushing their conversations to the point that they can gain that particular advantage over the Republican. But what we have seen happened now, the fact that Trump won the election by popular vote and by the electoral college vote, signaled the fact that democracy, the people never believed that Trump is a disaster, and democracy is about the people. So if democracy is about the people and the people had voted in Trump that the Democrats believe he is a disaster, then whose opinion are we going to take over the other person? Are we taking the opinion of the people that democracy is actually built around, or we are taking the opinion of a particular group of people that believe Trump is a disaster? So for me, I think the people have spoken, and that is what I'm going to stand by, that Trump is not a disaster. If he's a disaster, Americans would have voted him out. And you could see how he actually swept through most of the the battlegrounds across America. For example, Pennsylvania. We were thinking that Pennsylvania was going for Hillary, but for Harris, sorry. But look at what happened. It went for Trump. So for me, I think it's a fair play, and the people have spoken. For me, I don't believe, I will not say totally that Trump is a disaster, because the American people have spoken that Trump is not a disaster.
Now, you mentioned Hillary. Many people are saying Trump has prevented women, I mean, two women now, Hillary Clinton and now Kamala Harris, from becoming president. What do you say to those using it as an excuse to call Trump a misogynist and a sexist?
I want to ask you a question. How did Trump prevent either of them from becoming the president of the United States of America? It was a fair play. They went to the poll and the people voted. So it's the people that actually spoke. The people actually voted who they want. It is not a Trump. They all campaigned. So it's not a game. See, and I think this is also one of the things that I also want us to move away from. If we build the conversations around women inclusion, around narrative that shouldn't be, it will be difficult for us to have that, to create that enabling environment to encourage women inclusion. For me, if it's not a Trump thing, denying a Hillary or a Kamala the opportunity to clinch the presidential seats of the United States of America, it's simple. They went to the poll, the people voted. So it is not about Trump. It's not a sexist thing. It is a people's thing. And I think people's voice matter. And that's one of the things we should be building our conversation on. Now, having said that, encouraging women participations will go beyond us going the sexist narrative. It will go, we will need to begin to build that consensus and begin to build a network of people that will support women leadership, who will not in a way say it's a Trump play the blame game or something, but people that will open their mind to actually embrace the fact that yes, every human being is equal and every human being have the opportunity to vie for any political office. So give a woman a chance and give the person an opportunity. But if a woman goes to the poll and never win, we should not blame it, or we should not say it's a sexist issues. But practically, it is the people's voice that has spoken, and the people's voice matter. And I think that is what is the most important thing that we should be looking at, and not the whole narrative around sexism and the other things that the people are talking about. And if we bring it down to sexing, women, I believe, might have a large population of voters in America may fall between the women population. So why didn't they vote for their own? That's the conversation we should be having.
Now, given the split polls, were you surprised Trump won? And what do you think gave him the edge? Because that was one key thing I was looking out to see in this election.
Sincerely, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised. Why I was not surprised, I expected that this was going to go the Trump way. And why I was not surprised is the fact that, number one, if you look at Joe Biden has not been in the game for a period. Why did I say Joe Biden has not been in the game? We rarely see Joe Biden during the whole period that lead up to the election today. We did not see him make any public appearance, or we did not see him come out so boldly, so openly to support Kamala. That's number one. Then number two, if you will also agree with me that, Kamala had been she has been very central to managing the American affair, beginning from the moment the both of them took office in 2020. And America, under a Biden and a Kamala, had witnessed a lot of different issues. Number one, the high rise of the cost of living, the high cost of living. Number two, we are talking about inflation that is also affecting those that are doing business in America, the typical business people in America. Then you now bring it down to issues around immigrations, which is something that states like North Carolina, I think North Carolina, or the border states too, the states that have borders with Mexico, are seriously, speaking about. Then we also bring the issues around the balance of power within the multilateral relationship, within the global community, multilateralism, the depleting nature of multilateralism. You see that America in the international community is beginning to lose their image. For example, Putin does not have respect for a Kamala. We knew what happened when Kamala went to Ukraine and how Putin refused to meet with a Kamala. So if you put all of this together, it would come down to the fact that Biden and Kamala have done so poorly with economy. They've done so poorly with managing multilateralism. And the people are saying, we can no longer trust you with this country for another 4 years. Trump came to them, singing the song of revamping the economy, cutting down taxes, building the walls, and preventing illegal immigration into America. Mind you, Trump is not saying, I will not allow people to come into America. He has been very emphatic and direct to his point that people will come into America, but coming into America, you will come into America through the legal process, through a legal means. You will not come into America through an illegal means. This is what Trump is saying. So simply for me, it's not a surprise because the base of their campaign actually speak the direction of this particular result we are seeing. Why Hillary has not done so well on the economy and managing the Ukraine-Russian war, and also the Hamas whole crisis. The Hamas crisis, it's clear to you from managing that from those optics that the elections was going the Trump way. So for me, I am not surprised in any way, and I expected that this victory was going for Trump because Trump had actually been at the top of the issues that the African Americans have been asking for, has been demanding for, have been building their conversations around. So for me, I think it's never a surprise. It's something that I expected.
Now, what do you make of Harris not conceding defeat? I know that by the time Trump gave that speech, it wasn't really, he hadn't secured, 2070 plus electoral votes. But I mean, it's been hours since that time now, and we have not really seen anything from her campaign. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's not so late yet. I am still probably she's trying to take some rest after a long campaign trail, after also trying to pull herself together, pull her emotion together to come up with to come up with what to say. That's number one. Then number two, again, you also remember that announcement was made when Trump hadn't won the election yet. Then I think the electoral college vote was at I think around 200 and was it around 250 something, 260 something for Trump. So it's not then it was not official that Trump had actually won the election. So saying it's not so late yet. We we look forward to hearing from her soon, and we hope she put a call across to Trump to congratulate him, and at the same time, I wouldn't say lick her wound, but at the same time, I would also say learn from the defeat and see how to build on this for further engagement in another elections come about 4 years' time.
Now, given this massive victory for Trump, what do you make of the Democratic Party, especially after spending, $1 billion on campaign? How did $1 billion not guarantee a win for Kamala Harris?
Now, let me say this. What percentage of the entire population of America are the who and who is who, or the who is who in America that have endorsed Kamala? What percentage? What percentage of the total American voting population are those ones? People, there are a lot of things that, let's be very sincere about this. America under an Obama is also trying to recover from some of the ills of the Obama government, and particularly as a person, I'm not so much of a fan of an Obama. So him endorsing anybody, to me, it's not something that speaks volume for me. It's not so much of a thing for me. So for me, I will not go that way. You also know that big business people like Elon Musk also endorsed Donald Trump, raised some very good cash for Donald Trump. Yeah, I know that, but in summary, what I'm saying is that it is not a who and whose endorsement, but the American citizens. Then this brings me to a conversation around campaign financing, which is something that I think it's something interesting to see what the CLC, the Center for Legislative Center for Legislative Engagement or something. There is a particular center in America that monitor closely electoral campaign financing. I look forward to the reports that will come if campaign financing actually aligns or agrees with what the money that was raised agrees with the laws of America with respect to campaign financing. It's something that I look forward to also seeing. And I know America has a robust framework for tracking and also monitoring campaign financing, which is something that I think it would be very interesting to learn from, to adopt in Nigeria and some African countries that still have a huge issue battling with excessive use of money within our campaign and our electoral within our election. So it's something that I think I look forward to drawing lessons from on that. But for me, I think it's it's a whole good win.
Now, the Republican Party has also reclaimed control of the United Senate, ending 2 years of Democratic leadership. Tuesday's general election saw a third of the upper chamber in Congress, or 34 seats, hit the ballot, of which approximately 9 were competitive. The Democrats were vulnerable to losing their grip on the chamber, given their narrow majority. A coalition of 4 independent senators and 47 Democrats gave the party its 51% majority out of a total of 100 possible seats. The party needed to defend every seat possible to retain control, but on Tuesday, 2 key defeats decisively put the power over the Senate back into the Republican hands. Now, I've seen a lot of U.S. journalists try to spin this as, more of like a rubber stamp, Congress that we are going to see in the United States, which will mean lots of power for President-elect Trump. What are your thoughts?
Now, under a Biden presidency, what was the configuration of the House? Yes, it's divided and all of that, but you could also see a lot of the things that happened under a Biden presidency. Well, permit me to just draw attention to something that I think it's important to speak to at this point. And I hold this. Let me be responsible for the narrative, what I am about saying. I think media houses in America should also begin to learn lessons to also be optimistic and also come up with some very positive narrative. We saw how that affected the whole landscape, the political. It almost caused a political instability in America. The rhetorics about Trump and the narrative that the media sponsored as well too around Trump. We saw how he survived 2 assassinations. Come on, that's appalling in the history of America. Immediately I lost respect for the American democracy. Immediately there was an assassination attempt on Trump's life. That's what happens in Nigeria, and the global community, frown at it, and all of that is happening in the US. That boils down to the fact that some very strong negative rhetorics and negative rhetorics was also being fueled by people and the media houses in America. He just won an elections. The House is there. Allow them to even get into the office before you start, putting out the rumor it's going to be a rubber stamp house and all of that. Trump is going to get his way through and all of that. Why riding on the negatives? Why don't you talk about the positives around the elections? Why don't you talk about the fact that the people of Americans had spoken? Why don't you talk about even though Trump complains at some point that there are some sharp practices in Pennsylvania, people, the officials in Pennsylvania came out to also debunk that particular fact. Why don't you look at the positive? Why don't they look at the positive part of these elections and hammer on that particular positive? This is what we should be building our tent around, and not on the negative. If we begin on the negative, there is that whole chances that we might continue on the negative, because the negative will keep coming and it will shield our focus on the positive things. So as much as we need to, the media in America needs to do their civic responsibility of being a watchdog, it's also very important for them to also feel a positive narrative, to also create that positive image, positive perspective about American democracy. If they continue this way, there is nothing that countries like Nigeria, countries like the Sahel countries in West Africa may not want to totally open up their arms to embrace the full culture of democracy, because they are spreading the negative. And American has become, in the world we say that they are the beacon, they are the shining light for democracy. So why don't you look at the positive thing to talk about the American democracy, the positive thing to talk about the elections, the positive that you can also talk about Trump and Kamala. You will agree with me that a Trump campaign this time was better off than the 2020 campaign and even the 2016 campaign. So we should also look at that. What informed that particular position, what informed that particular perspective and that particular positioning from Trump. These are also positive that we need to also be to look at, and not dwelling on the negative and beginning to raise that tensions with the people, with the citizens, that is going to be a rubber stamp house. So for me, I totally don't agree with the media houses in saying, putting that particular narrative forward. And I know every senator in America, every House of Rep, every rep member in America are representing a constituency. And if they do anything that is not in tune with their constituents, definitely there is an opportunity to use the arm of law to also effect what they need to do to call those people to order and to effect a constitutional alignment in America. So for me, I think that's my thought, and that's what I stand with. Not totally dwelling on the negative narrative, but also how can we also begin to talk about the positive the positive outcomes from this particular election.
Now, will Trump win subside the heat of his legal challenges?
When he was president, what happened when he was president of America? Did he, being the president, insulated him from being tried by the court? No. So definitely the law is law. And I know America has a very strong constitution and a strong judicial system. So let's keep our finger crossed and see what happens in the days to come. We anticipate for the best that the judiciary would do their bit and would do what they ought to do. It's not like Nigeria that once a sitting political party win elections, we automatically know what the judgment is going to look like. This is not Nigeria. This is America. Let's see how this turns out in the days to come.
So let's talk about U.S.-Africa relationship, looking at development prospects under the Trump administration. What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting. And I think this is the time that U.S.-American relationship under Trump, the first in the first term, was not quite what people expected. For me, I take it from the positive in the sense that his disposition to Africa, it's something that calls Africa to sit up and to work hard. For me, a U.S.-African relation that I'm seeing is not a puppet relationship, bilateral relationship. I'm looking forward to a relationship that speaks more to transfer of knowledge, transfer of technology, transfer of infusion of ideals that helps to build the African democracy and the African context. Not this whole relation that is built on Africa must adopt gay or lesbian, or if not, we don't give you AIDS. If not, we don't do XYZ. That is what under a Trump administration we might not be seeing. Yes, it's not going to look so good, but I also think it's going to look good because there is a whole lot of vote that was ramped from the Black Americans for Trump. This could also inform his foreign policy towards Africa and some other countries around the world. But for Africa, I think it's going to be a run between the US and China in Africa. It might not look so good, but it's something that will cause Africa to also sit up, to work hard, to position itself in a way that gets that attention from Donald Trump. Not the attention to come to beg for money, but the attention to look at how can we do business together? How can we improve our trade corporations? How can we strike that win-win agreement in terms of trade, in terms of getting foreign direct investment from the US to Nigeria and other critical areas around building and deepening the economy within within Africa? How can we strengthen our military corporations to also address the critical issues surrounding security in Nigeria, in terms of intelligence sharing and all other critical aspects of the economy? These are things that I think Africans should put forward and not going to beg. Because if you approach a Trump with a begging mentality to look for aid, I doubt if a Trump would listen to Africa. And that's the standpoint that I'm looking at the US-African relation from that particular perspective.
You know how much the U.S. contributes aid to the UN? We saw how he cut funding in his first tenure. Aside Africa, how does this affect, the geopolitics as a whole?
Looking back at American citizen, looking back at American history, you will know that after the Great Depressions, the principle of isolationism, how it helped to revamp the American economy after the Depression. When you also take it down to the Asian tigers, the Asian the big economy within the Asian continent that also they were looking at the likes of Taiwan, Singapore, and the rest of them. Now, you would also know that there was also a period that they shut, they closed off a bit to look within, to build from inside out. So the principle of isolation, I interact with other people. You must do business with other countries, but not at the expense of your own country. So the American first mantra or principle for me resonates strongly with me, because the very first reason why Trump is elected is to defend the Constitution of America, to ensure that Americans that elected him into office also have food, access to the basic necessity, to the basic public service. So, American first, beautiful, that is what it should be. Now, how would this affect development aid? I think this is also this will withdraw our attention to beginning to also ask the questions that, is development aid actually the pathway to development in itself? We need to begin to question that. How long do we continue receiving aid? Now, you also know that the countries that gives aid have done their political economy analysis of every country. They have done their own internal assessment to see what are the needs, what are their trade needs, what are their knowledge or the skills need within their country or within their continent, what are the possible market for their products. So this aid that is being brought into Africa or Nigeria or any of brought into these African countries are targeted at creating access to market for their products. That's number one. We should also be looking at this, are underlining issue, the underlining rationale behind aid. Sometimes you will also see that sometimes when these aids are given, there are conditions that comes with the aid. For example, I'm taking money from a US government, and it's been a subtle, there's a subtle directive that maybe I'm running a medical outreach, and there is a subtle directive that if I am to purchase medical equipment, it should be from the companies that are from the US-led companies, technology companies. These are questions, these are underlining issues around aid government that we need to also begin to look at. So in terms of development, if it cuts down aid, good, beautiful things for Africa. We have enough resources that we need to fall back to start thinking, how do we develop internally? How do we raise money within our country to also start thinking of developing our country from resources that we can raise within Africa? How long do we continue waiting for a US Department of State to build hospitals in Nigeria, to build hospitals in my village, Agaliga Efabu? How long do we wait for the World Bank to bring money to help us to clean up? Look, these are the things that we need to look at. So It is also making some African countries very irresponsible. So for me, cutting down of AIDS, it's something that will be very good for African development, and it will be a way to go for Africa in terms of developing internally to revamping our economy. We cannot continue to rest on AIDS while we are forgetting that there are critical things that we need to pay attention to within our own country. Yes, Donald Trump will definitely cut down. He might definitely cut down AIDS. That's something that I think might happen, because he's been very emphatic about American forces. He's been very emphatic about the American project and redirecting money that has been spent, that he said has been spent carelessly outside, to funding the American project, which is something that I think he's bent on doing, and something that I think is a just cause. And I think we should give him a thumbs up for that. If we are not giving him a thumbs up for that, I think I should be asking a lot of questions around that.
All right, thank you for your time, Arame. We'll take a quick break. Please do stay with us. We'll be right back, of course, to move into the next set of conversation. Do stay with us.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
Glad to have you back. Time to look at the arraignment of minors over #EndBadGovernance protest. We told you earlier, we'll look at mercy over judgment, looking at and examining President Tinubu's intervention, looking at the calls for welfare after the release of the minors, and x-raying the right to protest versus committing a treasonable offense. Our guest, Arame Agenyi, political analyst, joins us. He's also a researcher and development expert. But let's just tell you that stringent criticisms had trailed the arraignment of these minors in court in Abuja last Friday, with the Northern Governors Forum, Arewa Consultative Council, and the ACF, lawyers, civil society organizations, CSOs, amongst others, condemning the dehumanizing condition of the minors. And of course, the minors were kept in the holding facility of Inspector General of Police, Special Response Team, IRT in Abuja, and where hardened criminals, including terrorists, bandits, and kidnappers, are being kept. It will be recalled that 4 minors who were among 76 persons listed in one of the charges slumped before they could be arraigned before the court last Friday. The teenagers between the ages of 14 and 17 who appeared ill and malnourished collapsed after they were marshaled in for arraignment. In the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Thursday struck out 2 separate treason charges preferred against 119 persons who were arrested and detained for participating in the #EndBadGovernance protest that held across the country in August. Their release came as Vice President Kashim Shettima said it was effected on compassionate grounds. The court terminated further proceedings in the charges after they were withdrawn by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi. Let's take a listen to what the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction had to say after the judgment.
Very much. We're here on the directive of the President to ensure that the children are safely returned back to their destinations. And before we return them, we want to do also due process of ensuring that they are medically fit. So we take them for safekeeping in the facility and make sure they're medically checked. And where we need to make additional treatment, we take care of them so that psychological, they're also tested, and we ensure that they're safely and well treated and taken care of and giving human, a human face to what happened. So that's why we're here.
The kids have been released, right?
Yeah, we'll take the documentation from the DPP. He is the person that is in custody of them. We've not received them yet, so when we receive them, we'll know the number.
However, speaking on Tuesday after the release of the minors, Vice President Kashim Shettima declared that his principal, President Bola Tinubu, directed the Attorney General of the Federation to facilitate the release of the minors facing trial for treason on compassionate grounds. He also said the nation lost over 300 billion naira from the destruction and halting of economic activities orchestrated by the protesters. So what's that supposed to mean? That was a good ground for us to arraign the protesters in the first place. But human rights lawyer son Femi Falana said that despite the release of the minors, he was proceeding to sue the federal government for failure to ensure they went to school as provided for in the Child's Rights Act. Well, let's take a listen to Femi Falana's reaction.
I'm calling on the federal government to take steps to return these children to their homes and then embark on rehabilitating them, and as we have applied to the court, to also enroll them in schools. We are also calling on the governments of Kaduna and Kano states to take urgent steps to have these children particularly taken back to their homes. Yesterday, 19 people were also charged in Borno State, including minors. Again, we are calling on the government to discontinue all cases pending in different states with respect to the August protest. I'm also aware that 16 people are standing trial in Kano. Initially, 632 were arraigned before a mobile court, but today 16 are still standing trial in court. Once the government has recognized the constitutional rights of Nigerians to protest, the criminalization of protest in Nigeria must stop. Thank you. Fired against protesters by the government. 2 have been struck out this morning, so we're expecting that the government will also withdraw the 3rd one, which concerns about 11 people. That one is still pending in this court.
The State Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetoku, on Tuesday summoned all the deputy commissioners of police in charge of criminal investigations and department CIDs at commands and zones and heads of investigation units to Abuja for a meeting which is slated to hold on the 7th of November and the Police Resource Center at the Police Resource Center in Jabi here in Abuja. It is aimed at further ensuring professionalism in investigation with emphasis on child-friendly investigation and care. Is this just PR or will they actually walk the talk? Well, Arame, good to know you're still with us. Good to have you back.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, so let's start with your take on the president's intervention.
So insensitive, inhumane, and it's disappointing that Tinubu, the President Tinubu and his team, most of his teams are a group of undemocratic people. It's appalling to see the same people that use protests to gain power are clamping down on protesters. And this time around, not just protesters, children, those that the law defines as children. It appears the value these people have for human life. So for me, it's disappointing. The president intervening at this point is medicine after death in the Nigerian language. It's medicine after death. Why is he intervening? After Nigeria has been disgraced? And I think if Nigeria is a country where, it's a country of some individual in public service that have value and I think the Attorney General of the Federation should resign from his appointment. The Inspector General of Police should also resign, should leave their office. They are bunch of disgrace to this country, and it's a disappointment.
You used the word disgrace. Do you recall the VP said there were videos that indicated that these minors actually, committed treasonable offense? He was also talking about 300 billion lost as a result of the hashtag and bad governance. What's your response to these talking points?
What is that treasonable offense? They should bring the video out for us to vet the video, to vet the authenticity of that particular video. These are excuses that these people give that, proves to us that they don't have value for human life. If a child is caught, committing a treasonable offense, there is a process to trying a minor, for God's sake. There is a juvenile court. There is the Child Right Act. There is a process for doing that, except we are saying we don't have respect for Constitution. And except Vice President Shetima is saying that he has no regard for Constitution. Let me flip this back to him. If it was one of his son or daughter that was caught in that act as a minor, and is being treated the way these children are being treated, how will he feel as a father? Come on. Come on. They do worse things. They do worse things, but nobody is questioning them.
Now, there's been calls for the welfare of these minors, but go ahead. I see you're so emotional about this particular conversation. So go ahead, please.
This issue, particularly for me, is quite emotive. I'm quite emotive about this particular thing because I am trying to fix myself to put myself in their place. What if it happens to me? What if it happens to my younger brother? What if it happened to my niece or my nephew? My nephew, sorry. What if it happened to someone that is very close to me? So I'm trying to put myself in that. So if that, I think our politicians in this country, some of them should be subject to psychological tests to know if they are in their right frame of mind before they assume office, because they act from these men, they act from these people. It's a clear sign that these guys have some things wrong with their mind that how would you, as a judge, sit down in a court trying a minor and you could not raise alarm and you could not say anything about it? You are comfortable trying a minor in a court of law? Oh, what's with Nigeria?
Now, how do you think this government can repair the damage? Is it repairable?
If this can never go away from the mind of those children, and if those children, if those young ones grow up and they leave this country and say they will never come back to this country, you don't blame them. So what are you repairing? Now, I did a study around how trauma affects political behavior, and I did found that there is a huge role that trauma play in terms of how people behave politically. Now, we have not, when we start x-raying this, the traumatic effects of these 32 minors, let's say they are representing like 32 states. This is going to have an adverse effect on how they behave politically. This is going to have an adverse effect on their perspective, their perceptions, and their conception of the Nigerian state. And when you see someone as this grow up to become a child of terror to the government tomorrow, you will not blame this person, because there is a whole lot. So there is nothing that the government say. And when the government said, we are going to take care of these people, forget it. These are political statements. They are not going to do anything. We have seen this over time and time again. The government will not do anything. It's just a political statement to score a political goal at this particular time. This is when the optics is down, when everything becomes silent, we go back to the normal things and nobody talks about these children again, except for well-meaning Nigerians like Falan and some other well-meaning Nigerians who may not come out to speak openly about taking care of those minors, to take it to a logical conclusion, to see how to rehabilitate them, to see how to provide a post-traumatic therapy for these children to ensure that they reincorporate them back to the society. If not, take it or leave it. These minors can never return back to the society, the normal human that they are. Something had happened to their mental configuration, which is something that I think it will be very difficult to erase in a very long time. As a child growing up, I knew those of my teachers that flogged me when I was in the primary school. I knew how they treated me. Those ones that talked me down, that never, see anything good about me. I know them. It's difficult for me to erase it. I knew those. I could still remember those who gave me food to eat. Those who came to my aid when I was stranded. I could remember them. I could remember down to the person who bought me an ice cream. I could remember it as a child. So not to talk of a child that grew up in a technology age, in a digital age, that these pictures will be there over time, these videos will be there over time and time for them to see. So tell me, what is the government going to do? The government that is full of lies? Come on. What I think for me as a Nigerian, these are my opinion, not the opinion of any institution, so any organization I represent. This is RM's opinion, my own standpoint. The Attorney General of the Federations and the judge that was presiding over this particular case, they should resign. They should leave their office. They are quite incompetent. And the Inspector General of Police should also vacate his office. This is an abuse of the Constitution. And for God's sake, it's immoral, it's inhuman.
You talk about abuse from school. I also, I'm a testimony to the fact that, we as kids, we saw terrible things being done to us. As funny as it may sound to you, it's not really funny. Government can definitely do better. It's unfortunate, Arome, that we are out of time. Thank you so much for your time on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's the much we can take on the show. We've got to go because my producers are ringing in my ear that we have to call it quits for now. Once again, my name is Mono Balagogo, thanking you for watching Politics Now today. I'll see you same time right here on this station.